Please welcome Manuel Lima, Senior Design Director at Interos.AI.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today to talk about a really important topic, which is how can we, as a design community, develop an ethical design practice and build a better world. So over the years, I've worked at various different companies, big and small, and I also published 3 books on data visualization and information design and design culture. But today, I really want to talk to you about my latest book, published by the MIT Press, on design ethics. It's called The New Designer, Rejecting Myths and Embracing Change. You might ask me today, why do a book on design ethics? So this has been a question that's been following me for some time. I changed my interest from data visualization into design ethics. Again, why? Well, if we look closely at our planet, if we were to able to zoom in on our planet today, we can see that it is filled with bad design decisions. What you can consider to be pretty irresponsible, right? As Bruce Ma would say so wisely, we humans as a species, we keep dumping problems we cannot solve into places we cannot see. But unfortunately, we're not just hurting our planet, we are hurting our fellow human beings. We are hurting them in many different ways, including our teenagers and our children, causing a variety of mental problems, from addiction to depression, mental stress, anxiety, and even suicide. And you can say, well, we're not the problem. Yes, we are. We designers are very much responsible for this tragedy by creating highly addictive experiences, by creating dark patterns, and the ultimate sin, by exploring the human mind for profit. So today, I really want to help us as a community understand how can we explain this moral failing by design? Every designer that I talk to wants to do good for the world and for society. So how can we explain, again, this tragedy that's happening in front of our eyes? So I'm going to walk you through a few reasons and then propose a few solutions. Reason number 1 is a strong desire to fit in. All of us have heard this theory that if only design had a seat at the table, things would be different, right? If only we had a voice, things wouldn't be as bad. But this is far from reality. And I've seen it closely in many of different places that I've worked at. Because as soon as you get that very deserved seat at the table, you tend to conform to what the group thinks, right? Group thinking. You tend to conform and follow the norm, which ultimately leads to ethical fading. What is ethical fading? When ethics are ignored or brushed aside in order to conform to the norm or achieve a given metric. So this is reason number 1. The second reason that I see quite too often is that the things that we build are becoming larger and larger. And sometimes they are simply too big to notice. So I've led teams where designers are responsible for one single button, and that's the only thing they do, buttons and scroll bars, right? So often, designers are working on a very small scale of a problem, and therefore, they miss the ability to see the big picture. And you might say, this is not an issue, and that's true. Sometimes the big picture is something fairly safe and benign, but it can also be something dark and harmful. As Jared Fuller points so well to this expansion of the design scope, we are all part of the assembly line, working on increasingly smaller parts of increasingly bigger projects. And in the process, again, we are losing the ability to see that big picture. Two reasons. The third reason is that we are becoming so accustomed to celebrating launches, not landings. So what do I mean by this? Anytime you see things like sales, adoption, conversion, profitability associated or tied with a raise, a promotion, a bonus, take it with a huge grain of salt. This is normally a recipe for problems of all kinds. So imagine this situation. Let's say a doctor's performance is associated by how many success cases he or she is responsible for. Mr. Hardis, we've got a critical situation. Oh, no, sorry, I'm only taking the easy ones. Why bother? I cannot hurt my bonus in taking care of someone that's going to be dead in just a few moments, right? Why bother? You might think this is kind of like a surreal example, but in fact, this today is the case in many industries, specifically Silicon Valley and tech companies, right? Where today, designers, and it's not just designers, but engineers, product managers, really entire product teams are evaluated based on, you guessed it, the number of launches. Ring the bell, another launch, right? Now, did it land? Is it helping humans, society, the environment? Is it ethical? Who cares? Who cares? We just did another launch, so let's celebrate that launch. And unfortunately, this is not just a problem within Silicon Valley, within tech companies. Most design education still today is based on this assumption of launching. This, many of you have probably seen this. This is known as a double diagram. It's a representation of the design process. Many representations of the design process have been put together. This is arguably one of the most famous ones. It's called, again, the double diamond, or the 4Ds, the 4 stages. And it was put together by the British Design Council roughly 20 years ago. So if you notice closely, the diagram is not completely bad, right? It introduces the need for us to identify the problem, discover, define, and then design the thing right, the solution. But notice how this and all other process diagrams finish with the same step, which is what? Deliver. This is it, right? You deliver this project to your client, to a customer, to engineering, you wash your hands, and you jump to the next project, right? And with the end of your project, it's also the end of your responsibility. So, I hate to say it, this process itself that we designers have been educated on is absolutely incomplete. I feel so strongly about this that at some point I wanted my book to be called The Third Diamond. And then the publisher were like, well, maybe think about this. You are giving the double diamond a bit too much importance. And that was true. But I feel so strongly that we as a design community really need to be thinking about that third diamond. It doesn't matter that you're designing the thing right and you're designing the right thing. It matters to have the right impact that we want to see in the world, right? When I think about this, I can only imagine the image of any of us creating a really super well-crafted paper plane, right? We spend maybe an hour crafting the most perfect, well-designed paper plane, and then we throw it out the window, but instead of waiting for it to land, no, we just turn our backs and move on to something else. Without seeing if it even landed. Would you ever do that? Not at all. And yet, this is what we do every single day when we are creating our variety of design solutions. So in the book, I do expand a little bit more on some of the reasons. I just went through 3 different reasons to explain this moral failing by our community. But now, let's focus, I don't want to end on the negative, so let's focus on solutions, okay? How can we, as a design community, have the type of positive impact that we want to see? How can we make the change? How can we leave this tragedy behind us and focus on the positive? So I'm going to tell you 4 different strategies today that I hope that everyone working on design can take to heart. One of them, the first one, is to design the long journey. What do I mean by this? Well, if you are creating, let's say, a new mobile app, you're not just creating a super shiny icon on the screen. No, you are creating a companion. At the time where most of us spend more time with our mobile phones than we do with our friends, with our loved ones, with our family, right? You are really creating a companion for this person, this individual. Now, what kind of companion do you want to create? One that's always bothering and nagging you, disturbing you, making you feel sad and depressed? Or instead, a companion that is supportive, that aims to bring out the best in you. But designing the long journey is not just about understanding the context, it's really understanding the full context of that experience. So every time you design a user journey, you only care about the point in time where users interact or play with your design solution, being physical or digital. But the journey is much longer than that. If you're creating a mobile app, this journey started way before, right? In the mining of precious metals in China and Vietnam, to different production cycles, to even where they land on the landfill at the end of this journey. Because again, humans, we are just a blip in the life cycle of a mobile phone. Most mobile phones today in our pockets will stay in the environment, in the landfill, for centuries. And you have to think about that and design your solution with the long journey in mind. So how can we do that effectively? I always go back to this quote by Finnish-American designer Eero Saarinen, which is beautiful. And if only we would think about this quote every time we are designing a solution, things would be a lot better. It starts by questioning and understanding the ultimate context of any design solution. Always design a thing by considering it in its next larger context. If you are designing a chair, think about a room. If you're designing a room, think about the house. A mobile app in the phone, and so on. A house in an environment in a city plan. So always have this larger context in mind as part of designing this long journey. So this is strategy number 1. The second strategy is one that I love, and it's very much the hot topic today, and even in this conference, which is all about the future, right? But I take a different spin on designing the future. The definition of my future that I define in the book is really one where it's not a future that far from us. Well, it is in one way, but what we are really doing is elongating the present. So this is a diagram from the Long Now Foundation. I don't know if you know about it. It's based out in California. It's incredible. They do this really significant projects. And they are really defining this idea of the long now. When we say now or today, we kind of mean the past 2 or 3 days. Nowadays, it's kind of like our generation, right, 30 years. But when we extend, when you elongate the present for this long now, it comprises roughly 20,000 years. So everything we do today, we have to take care of it and to account for how it will impact society and the world centuries from now, even millennia from now, okay? We are working in a very sort of short-sighted cycle by only caring about today, the now. If only we were able to, again, elongate the present, this idea of the long now. And you might think, wow, this is kind of crazy. It's not. The Long Now Foundation is actively involved in building projects that exemplify this thinking. One of them is the Long Now clock. This is a clock meant to last up to 10,000 years. Native Americans believed in this idea called the 7-generation principle, which is a beautiful concept, which means that everything I do and we do as a community today needs to positively impact 7 generations down below, okay? And again, even here in Europe, we have done examples like this multiple times. If you see any medieval cathedral, that's a long now idea, right? Some of the European cathedrals, medieval cathedrals we see today, took centuries to build. Centuries, not just even decades, but centuries. Imagine this, you were born and you would die and you would never see the final product. You would only see scaffolding, right? Because again, you were part of a collective that believed in this idea of building something multi-generational for the benefit of future generations. This idea, again, of the long now. But here, this is where speculative design comes in. I'm not sure if you've heard about speculative design. It's an area that I really, really care deeply because it's really allowing us to paint the picture for what the future might hold, this idea of the long now. And very at the core of speculative design is this specific diagram. And why is this important? Because, well, today, as a design community, we are continuing design for probable futures, the core, right? That's what we design for. The assumption that we have is in 2 years, next year, in a few months, things will be more or less the same. We kind of have an idea of how the world will look like in 1 year or 2 years. That's a probable future. There's a strong probability that things will remain the same. Now, when you venture into the realm of plausible futures, or even more interestingly, when you venture into the realm of possible futures, then anything is on the table. There's no one here today that cannot say that in 5 years, we are all going to be here today, or we're going to be here today as a species as we know ourselves, right? And a tragedy could happen next week. Everything is possible in the realm of possible futures. And that's exactly what speculative design does. They are in that realm of possible futures, where anything is possible. And we have to prepare ourselves, we have to design for those outcomes. Because as Alan Kay said so well, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. So these are examples of speculative design. Take this one on the left, Neo Fruits. Explores a future scenario where humans will create food artificially. The second one on the right, Oceanics, explores a future scenario where humans can live sustainably in the oceans. And you might think, well, this is kind of feels a little bit dystopian, a little bit sort of surreal. Are we going to really need this kind of thinking, this kind of like way of looking ahead into the future? Absolutely. Which one in the audience can say that tomorrow we're not going to have a massive tragedy again, given our economic, political, even climate situation? We could well be living on oceanics in the next 5 years. Are we even thinking about that possibility? Are we designing for that possibility? I think we should. If nothing else, we can learn from that perspective. And if you are really curious about speculative design and design fiction, these are some of the books that I love, and I've used them extensively as part of my research into the new designer. So, the third approach, the third strategy for us to leave this tragedy behind us: designing the invisible. I know this is a very visual audience, so I hope you don't throw tomatoes at me, but I really believe that design portfolios are a thing of the past. At least I would like to believe that design portfolios are a thing of the past. Why? I think AI is taking over most of the visual look and feel of design today, of many digital design products. We just go out there, right, into many of those screens, and we can see that. We can see that in the work that we do every single day. AI is taking over the visual look and feel of a lot of our projects and digital experiences. Is that a bad thing? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Why? Because design, as Steve Jobs said, it was never about, and it's not just what it looks like and feels like. Design is how it works. And we see glimpses of the future in many different ways. I think one important glimpse of the future is what's happening today within the service design community. I think service design is an area where it's really taking that first step into this idea of the invisibility of design. But it's just the beginning, right? Understanding the underlying, the invisible layers and connections of services and experiences. But it doesn't stop there at all. What you actually see here, Vegemie, doesn't look great on the design portfolio, I know. It's not a premium, sort of very sophisticated, good-looking project, but it's absolutely critical to our survival as a species and our future. Vegemie was the winner of the No Waste Challenge, right? A competition that called creatives all across the world to submit innovative solutions to reduce waste and rethink our production and consumption cycle. And this is the winning entry, Vegemie. It aims at reducing food waste in Tokyo by composting in the various different places from food businesses, community, and universities. This is the winning entry. This is the kind of new design projects I would love to see in the future idea of a portfolio. You might say, that's crazy. Yes, and it gets even crazier. So, Weather Makers, I'm not sure if you know about this project, but Weather Makers is a collective of designers, engineers, really a multidisciplinary initiative that aims at something really, really big and ambitious, which is regreening the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt, which is pretty much a desert today, in only 20 years. That's the goal, right? You might think, wow, that's so ambitious, that seems almost impossible. But it's not impossible. And it has been done before. It has been done in the Low Plateau in China, and it has been done by 2 individuals alone. Brazilian photographer Sebastião Salgado and his wife, in their own private property, they planted more than 2 million trees over 20 years and brought back a dead subtropical rainforest with 200 animal species. This is what 2 people could do with limited resources. Now you imagine what we can do with just 1% of the budget, spent on AI today, right? With governments supporting this type of initiative. As Tim Christopherson said so well, the main challenge we are facing today is the lack of human imagination. Our inability to see a different future because we are staring down this dystopian path of climate change. We are thinking that there's no solution anymore. We lost the battle. Let's move to Mars. Let's embrace AI and let's forget about nature. Absolutely not. We just require a little bit more imagination. And designers are absolutely important agents of that change. So finally, my fourth strategy today is for us, the design community, to design like a network. So what do I mean by this? We, designers, we love the word system. We say design system all the time, right? But it is a definition that lacks ambition. Is this our design system? Is this a design system? No. This is our system. This is our ultimate design system. Because for better or worse, Earth has become a design space. So it is absolutely paramount today that we, as a design community, we designers, start thinking in the terms of networks, okay? So I love this example, and I have a little bit of time, so I'm going to tell you this example. I'm originally from Portugal. Portugal loves codfish, in case you don't know. And this is a diagram of all the species that interact with the codfish. The codfish being right at the center of this. I think I have a laser. But you see right there at the middle top is the codfish. The story behind this diagram is fascinating. About 20 years ago, the codfish population was vanishing in the northeastern Canada. And the Canadian government, this is true, you can look it up online, decided to do what? Kill the main predator of the codfish. Not humans, which were definitely overfishing the cod, but the main other predator, the seal, right? For years, hundreds and thousands of seals were exterminated in the hope of bringing back the codfish population. Okay? Until one zoologist who did this diagram say, wait a minute, things are not so simple like that. An ecosystem is a little bit more complicated. So he created this diagram that shows 100 species that interact with the codfish. And it turns out that yes, the codfish population was certainly disappearing, primarily due to overfishing by humans, of course, but they were also vanishing because the subspecies from which the cod was feeding from was disappearing for a whole different set of reasons, okay? So this is the kind of insight that you can only get when you think like a network, when you design like a network. So putting this together, this was a zoologist. Imagine what designers could do when it comes to bringing clarity, bringing understanding, bringing simplicity into the picture, right? Transforming the invisible into visible. And again, the diagram on the left, the ecosystem of wicked problems. Most major problems we are facing today, existential problems we are facing today as a species, they don't have just one single predator, one single reason. Don't listen to the news. The news regard these kind of problems in a linear fashion, right? Predator versus prey. If there's a problem, there's a single cause. No, there's multiple causes. Everything is interconnected. Everything is interdependent, right? The world, everything that we think of, everything all around us is a network. So for us to move forward as a design community, this is a desire, a hope for the future. I would love for design thinking to become synonymous with network thinking. This is the recipe for us to really have a positive impact in the world. So, if you're curious on these and other related topics, my book, The New Designer, is out on major bookstores everywhere. And I really appreciate your time today. It was a pleasure. Thank you.